So, hi everybody, my name is Chiara Chiappini and I'm an agile software developer at eBay. If you wanna tell me something, you can tweet me. And all the material from this presentation, both the slides and the code, is on my GitHub, and the presentation is on my GitHub pages. So at eBay, I'm a full stack engineer. What this means is that my comfort zones are mainly Java and JavaScript. In the last 5 months, I've been involved with the development of the eBay Android app. So this is when I started to work with Android in a commercial environment. And today, I'm here to walk you through the step to set up your first Android app from an idea. In order to do that, I'm gonna use a story that I just invented. So maybe this is gonna be more fun, just following this story. So bear with me with that. So first of all, my office is in Richmond, and you can see from that photo, my office is the red building. It's a really cool area. And I must say that life is really tough at eBay. Sometimes I arrive in the morning, and I just found cakes waiting for me in the kitchen. And because there are so many cakes around, and the neighborhood is so nice, I normally go for a walk at lunchtime. Again, this is a picture that I took in the past few days. But because the weather in London is kind of unpredictable, sometimes I get caught by rain, which is not nice. So one day, I had an idea. What if I have an app on my phone which is gonna tell me what's the weather like today in Richmond? Let's imagine for a second that there are no such kind of apps around us. So this is like my idea. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I get really excited, and I wanna develop that. So first thing I do a sketch. Is there any user experience here in this room? Okay, that's fine, because that sketch is not the nicest sketch I could do. But basically, this is my idea. I just want an app telling me where I am. Okay, I'm in Richmond. I want to know what's the weather like today in Richmond, and I think it's going to be a sunny day. So I want to see the temperature, and I want to see a nice icon representing the weather. All right, so I have my sketch. So now it's time to build my app, okay? So where do I start? The first thing I do, I download Android Studio. So to be honest with you, when I started, because I'm a Java developer, I just wanted to continue IntelliJ, so I was trying to install stuff on top of IntelliJ. But if you start looking around, Android Studio is the main resource for your Android development. And I found really useful, especially the part for modeling your XML. So I start from there. And when I try to run my first app, I try to use the embedded emulator, and notice that it's really, really slow. This is not the way I want to work. I want to do something fast. So the second thing I would do is to install Genymotion. How many of you actually use Genymotion? Yeah, okay. I was expecting more, but for me it was a surprise because it's really faster in comparison of the embedded Android emulator. So I'm gonna go for that. The third thing I discover is actually a surprise. I need to learn Gradle. So being a developer for the past 5 years, I'm really comfortable with Maven. I was hoping to continue using Maven for all my life now that I learned that. But what I discovered is that everyone seems to be using Gradle. And you know what? I just need something that is gonna allow me to clean, build, use libraries, run my tests. So I'm up for that. I'm gonna learn Gradle. So the first thing I do, I just go to the website, start reading about that. And actually it comes integrated with Android Studio. So every time you generate a new project, it's gonna come with Gradle already installed. And the first build of Gradle for you in there. All right, so let's start with the layout, okay? So we just wanna do a prototype. And I'm gonna start with the layout. So what do I want? So I want a toolbar which is gonna represent me in which city I am, which is gonna be Richmond. I want a text view to tell me what's the weather, a description of the weather of today. I want another text view representing the temperature. Then I want a nice separator. And I want an image view to show me an icon representing the weather. All right, so I've done my layout. This is my first layout, so I think it's fine. Second thing I do, I'm just gonna go to my activity, and I'm gonna try to populate whatever I put on my layout with some values. So we had a toolbar, so I wanna set the title to my toolbar to Richmond. I have a text view representing my temperature, so I'm just gonna stick in there 15. I'm a positive person. I live in London, so I'm gonna think today is gonna be warm, so it's gonna be 15. I wanna complete my description text view. Again, I'm really positive. I'm gonna set sun is shining. And last, I wanna use an icon representing the sun, so I'm gonna use an image resource for that. All right, so far, I've done my layout. I just written my activity. I battle a little bit with Gradle. And this is what I get. Well, I start showing these things around to my colleagues, to my friends, and they are really excited. They start asking me, why, Chiara, why don't you add a button to see the temperature for tomorrow, for the next week? Why don't you have the capability of selecting another city? Why don't you have the capability to see your temperature in Fahrenheit instead of degrees? So I'm really happy. This was just a prototype, and actually people likes my app. So I think I just got the $1 million idea, so I'm gonna go for that. Okay, so now the real fun starts. I have new features that I wanna develop, and I'm probably gonna have new coworkers because I have so many features to develop, and because working together with people is fun. Okay, so I think I'm ready. But then I stop for a second. I just start thinking that probably millions of people are gonna use my app. And I don't want people come back to me and tell, look, your app doesn't work. I wanna ensure quality, I wanna ensure performance. At eBay, we really think that the quality is important, and the code that we ship has to have a certain level of quality. And one way of doing that is actually using test-driven development. This is one of the practices that we use at eBay, together with other practices like pair programming, continuous integration. And for this reason, you're gonna see some tests before I start actually code my first app. Okay, so I'm just learning, I wanna do my app. So the first thing I do, I just start reading around the testing frameworks for Android. What I discover is that there are so many of them, so many flavors, so many colors, I just don't know what I should use. But the thing is that, so I wanna finish my app, I wanna ensure a good quality of my app, so I just need to find something that works for me, that is good enough for me to start. So the first thing I would say I would do is that look at how I'm gonna organize my projects. So the first time I created my prototype, I just created an app module. But the important things when you start your app is start thinking about how to design your modules. You should always try to have all your logic in a Java 1 or more Java modules. Leave everything that is related to Android in its Android module. And plus, as you can see from there, I also added another module, which I call London Weather Acceptance, in which I'm gonna keep all my acceptance tests. I really believe that all my code should live together. And this is my first step. Okay, so now I just need to start with my unit testing. So when I think about unit testing, I think that I just need to test one tiny piece of the code that I have. and I need to test that tiny piece against a specific aspect. I don't care about the integration with other modules. I don't care about anything else. I'm just concerned to that tiny little piece of code. And because I've just divided my project into different modules, I will start from the Java module because it's gonna be easier. I'm just gonna use JUnit tests. So what's the first test that I write? So as I said, we wanna know what's the weather like today in London. What do I expect that in my Java module, there's gonna be an object with just one responsibility, and I'm gonna call it weather oracle. At the moment, because I'm writing my first unit test, I really don't care how this oracle is gonna get this information from. What do I really care is that he's gonna have one responsibility, which is tell me the weather, okay? So my first test is should return a sunny weather. So every time I use this weather oracle and I get the weather, it's gonna return me a sunny weather. So now that I've written my test, I'm gonna go to my code. So I just put on top the asserts, so then it can help us to understand what we are doing. So what's the first iteration on a weather oracle that I can do? It's gonna just be a dump weather oracle. It's not gonna use any services. I know there are a bunch of them around, but I'm just gonna do the simplest thing I can think of because this is my first iteration. So every time I'm gonna ask the oracle what's the weather like, it's gonna create me a new object with the sunny weather. And I think I can run this test actually. Okay, so we can go into my Java module. That's it. Weather oracle test. Well, let's see if it passes, because if it doesn't pass, there's no point to continue. All right, green. Nice. Let's continue then. Okay, so I just written this test for my Java module. I'm gonna go now to my Android module. First thing, Android SDK comes with its own set of test framework, which is based on JUnit. The thing about the test framework, the Android test frameworks, is that because it's gonna use the instrumentation test runner, it's gonna need your app running either on a device or an emulator. And when I try to write my first test, what I noticed that is really slow. I'm just not gonna continue with that. It's too slow for me. So then I started to learn about Roboelectric. What Roboelectric allows you to do is to run unit tests against your JVM. So you can test your activities, but you will not need your application be deployed on an emulator or an actual device. I found that this is faster, so I'm gonna go for that. And the third thing, which is actually the thing that really surprises me, is that with Android Studio 1.1, you can run your JUnit testing inside your Android module. So before, every time you will try to run a unit test in your Android module, you will need a device running. But with Android Studio 1.1, and with the help of the variants, you can actually run directly your unit tests. So let's start looking at which kind of tests we can write. So let's start with the one testing my activity. So as I said, I want to use Roboelectric. When I started using Roboelectric, I just noted that it doesn't really come out of the box that working with Android Studio and Gradle. When I first tried to run it, I had some errors around. It couldn't find my manifest. I don't know what to do. So how I solved this, I extended the test runner, helping him to find my manifest. If you actually have a better idea how to do that, please go to my repository, issue me a pull request, and please teach me how to do this better. So with Roboelectric, you can get your activity And how you do this? Use roboelectric bid activity, specifying the name of the activity. And then what we can do at this stage, our activity is really, really simple. We just want to do some sanity checks. We want to check that there's a weather toolbar, there's a weather description, a weather temperature, and there's an icon, okay? So, well, let's run this again. So now we are in our Android module. I'm inside my test folder. And I want to run my main activity test. Okay. Is it gonna work? Right, green. Can carry on. Then we talked about the new changes with Android 1.1. We can run unit tests inside the Android module. So what do we need for our weather app? So as I said, I want to visualize an icon which is going to represent me the weather. And the first thing I can think of, it's a kind of mapper, which is going to map me, given a specific kind of weather, which icon I can use. I think this code needs to live in the Android module because it's gonna know the Android resources, so it has to live there. So the first test I can write is that my weather icon mapper should always return a sunny icon. So once I wrote my test, I start writing my code. So my weather icon mapper, again, is really dumb. It's just a static method. Every time I ask him to give me the icon, he's gonna give me back a drawable sun. So then I can get the icon. And in any other cases, he's gonna launch an exception. I can deal with this exception later when I will start adding more logic in that. And last, let's run it. So we are talking about the weather icon mapper test. So actually I have two tests in here. The first one is the one I showed you. The second one, I'm just checking that my exception is working correctly. So every time, if I'm getting something that I don't know, I'm gonna launch an exception. So let's run it again. Hopefully it's gonna pass. I don't know. Cool. All right, so we've done our first round of unit tests. We are happy. Okay, so we can continue now. But then, once you've done your unit test, this is still not enough. You need to start thinking about how your different module is gonna work with each other. You also need to think about how your user is gonna use your app, and you need to make sure that these flows work. So again, when I started reading about functional testing, I found Android, Calabash, Robotium, Appium, Espresso, so many more. I just need to choose something. It has to work for me, and I just want to carry on with my app. So what do I choose? I chose Selendroid. How many of you actually use Selendroid or ever used? Okay, no one. Scary. Have you ever used Selenium for testing web application? Okay, so cool. So Selendroid is basically Selenium for Android. And the cool thing about Selendroid is that it's an open source automation framework. It's in continuous development. And you can test native, hybrid, and mobile web applications. For example, in the eBay app, we have some pages that are mobile web pages. It can use both an emulator or a real device. And actually, it allows you to integrate with Selenium Grid. So basically, you can run tests on Selenium grids in multiple nodes. So let's have a look how to write your first Selendroid test. Okay, so again, let's think about our app. Our app is really, really easy. It just has some text views and an icon. So which kind of test I can do? So I expect that my user, when he's gonna go to my app, is gonna see a text view representing the description. I'm also expecting that he's gonna see a text view representing a temperature. So I start writing these two tests. And so the find weather text and find temperature text are just methods that I coded. So we can have a look at them. But before, I just want to show you how to set up Selendroid. So when you use Selendroid, first of all, you need to tell it where is your APK. So you need to pass the APK path. So what do I normally do is use system properties. So then if I'm running on my laptop or if I'm running in my continuous integration environment, I can pass these values. So you need to tell Selendroid which is your app under tests, the AUT. And how Selendroid works is that it's going to use a server, which is going to run normally on the 4.4 port. And once it will deploy this server, it's going to talk with your application, with your app deployed in your device. So before you start your Selendroid test, you need to have either an emulator or a device running. Then Selendroid is going to take care of deploying a server on it, and then it's going to deploy your APK. And then using that server, is going to command your APK. Okay, so you've done your setup. Then you can start looking at the test. So we saw two methods there. We saw the find temperature text, find weather text. So what they do, they are just wrapper on another method that I created, which I called find element by ID. That is going to use the driver, which is that Selenium gives you, and based on the ID of your element, is going to give you back the element. So then you can test that is returning the right value. All right, so now I just wanted to tell you a little story. This happened to me 5 years ago. I was living in US, and it was afternoon. I was having just a plain piece of bread. And my flatmate looked at me and he asked me, Chiara, do you know Nutella? I said, yes, Nutella, I know it. And he asked me, do you have Nutella in Italy? I said, yes, look, Nutella is from Ferrero, it's an Italian product. So then we started to argue about where Nutella is from. But at the end, he made a point to me. He told me that for him, there was no point for me having a slice of bread without some Nutella on top of that. There was just no point. And when I think about continuous integration and testing, this is the story I always think about. So for me, there's no point of having any testing if you don't have a continuous integration environment in place. And at eBay, for example, each team has a big screen next where the team is sitting. And this screen shows to you the jobs on your continuous integration environment. And if some of these jobs that can be running unit tests, do your build, running your integration tests, deploying the latest version to a demo machine, if some of these jobs get red, the team will immediately stop to develop, because what we think is that there's no point to add some buggy code on top of other buggy code, all right? So our first priority is to fix the build. And I can tell you that sometimes those build monitors, they look like Christmas trees with all the green, red. But it's actually fine. And also, we have our customers, which can be merchandiser just sitting on a floor below to us. If they are gonna stop by us and they're gonna see that our build monitor is red, they are actually telling us, have you noticed that your build monitor is red? So basically it's our customers telling us, would you like to fix your test? And I think this is amazing. So, okay, so I think I hope you understand how much continuous integration is important for me and for eBay. So let's try to recap a bit what is continuous integration. So first of all, continuous integration gives you early feedback. It gives the team peace of mind, because every time something is not going well, it's gonna alert you straight away. It also is gonna give you a standardized way of building your app. So there is not gonna be anything like it builds on my machine, or this test passes on my machine, I don't know why it doesn't pass on yours. This can't happen, because all the tests and the build is gonna run on that machine. You have a record of results, so if your test starts to be really, really slow, you can look back and see which is the commit that made the problem. And a continuous integration environment can support your release process. Basically, you can create different jobs for doing that, and it's actually your first step to continue deployment. All right, so when it comes to continuous integration, you have a lot of different alternatives. You have Travis, you have Jenkins, many more. I'll spare you with the list. At eBay, we use Jenkins, and I think Jenkins is the most widely used in companies. But for our weather app, I decided to use Travis. And why did I do that? First of all, Travis is free for public repositories. So if you're using GitHub, then you can use Travis for free as well. How does it work is that there are some community boxes in which your jobs are gonna run, and the jobs are gonna be in a queue. Then, if you don't wanna wait for queues, or if you wanna have concurrent jobs running, then you can do a subscription and go into the next level. Okay, so let's recap the steps to set up your Travis CI. First step, you go to the website. I also put the link. Second thing that you do, you sign in with your GitHub user. Third thing you do, you activate your GitHub webhook. And fourth thing, unfortunately, you have to write something. It's not going to be difficult. So you need to add to your repository a .travis YAML file. Let's see how it looks like. So in these files, you have to specify which kind of language you are going to use. So we are going to use Android. Which kind of JDK, it's Oracle. You can specify some variables. Then because I want to run my tests, I want to have an emulator running for running my Android test. So I can specify that step in there. So I'm just going to use what the Android SDK gives me. So I'm going to create and start an emulator. And at last, I'm just going to do a clean and build. I'm going to use Gradle wrapper. I don't know how many of you use the wrapper. Basically, the difference when you use the Gradle wrapper or the plain Gradle is that with Gradle wrapper, you can ensure that everyone is going to use the same version of Gradle, because if it's not there, it's going to download it for you. Okay, so this is what I actually get when I set up the Travis CI for the project for this conference. So you have this really nice page. You have all your build history. I had a green, so I took the snapshot when it was green because I needed to stick in the presentation. And second thing, so have you noticed that there's this build passing just next to the name of the project? So you can stick that icon in your GitHub repository using as a status. And to me, it's really important when I go to GitHub and I want to use an open source project, If I see that there's a continuous integration environment setup, if I see that build passing is the first step for me telling, okay, maybe I'm gonna consider this project. So it's like a card for your project and say that it builds correctly. All right, so let's try to summarize now what we've seen today. So we started with an idea. We had this idea of a weather app. Second, we went for a prototype. We just done on a piece of paper. Then we just put some values in an activity. So third thing we did, we started write some tests. So we looked at unit tests. We looked at functional tests. And then we had a look at how to configure your continuous integration environment. So after we've done all of this, I think I'm ready now to go for a walk. I really hope that on Monday, when I come back to London, I'm gonna find this weather. I don't know if this is gonna happen. But before I go for a walk, let me ask you, do you have any questions? Are you gonna go for a walk on Monday? Okay, so. Yes, so the question is, do we need to do this kind of tests for each app? Is this the question? So my thing is, first of all, tests, they don't bite you. What it really bites you? Bugs. This is what it bites you. So never be scared about testing. And the second thing is that once you understand how to set up your tests, every time you start a new app, okay, you already know how to do this, okay? So you may have a learning curve the first time you start. That's fine, you can ask help. But the second time you're gonna do it, you already know how to do this. So this is the kind of environment that I will use when starting a new app. Any other questions? Okay, so if there are no questions, thanks for listening to me today.